Hi, this is the start of session 3.4. In this session, the concept of rehearsing your trial setup in so-called dry runs is explained. Testing your trial setup is crucial to spot and solve any issues or mistakes before executing your real trial. This session is again targeted at trial organizers, solution providers, developers, and technicians. By completing this session, you understand the elements, structure, and outcomes of these rehearsals, the role, scope, and detailed extent of each dry run, and the process of integrating results of dry runs into the trial planning.
This session refers to Dry Run 1 and Dry Run 2 as rehearsals of your trial, and it presents the importance and purpose of testing the trial design. In these two rehearsals, the trial design and all technical and practical arrangements are tested. These tests should preferably take place at the location where the actual trial will be held. The aim is to test whether or not the results of all the 6 steps have been implemented correctly, and whether all things to do during execution are clear for all involved stakeholders. Dry Run 1 is the technical integration test and the first joint run-through of the scenario. Dry Run 1 aims at confirming the technical integration of solutions and all other technical infrastructure. It is also aimed to serve as a readiness overview and validation for the scenario's feasibility, especially from the side of test running the data collection methods. The event should result in obtaining a detailed list of tasks to do to obtain full readiness for the actual trial run. But before you do this real trial run, you should execute a second rehearsal, a full dress rehearsal. This is the Dry Run 2. Here you should do everything like done during the real trial. The only difference could be to do it with other or a few less participants. By executing this second dry run, you make sure everything is working as it should be, and it is a very valuable rehearsal for everyone within the trial staff. During previous dry runs, we have experienced a couple of misconceptions. First of all, a dry run is not an event to develop the technical infrastructure. It is there to test whether it has been correctly developed. The dry runs are also not a first working meeting with the solutions providers. The trial integration meeting is meant for that. Also, the scenario is to be presented and jointly worked upon during this TIM and thereafter. When a solution provider comes to Dry Run 1 not knowing about it, you are too late. Note that time is precious, so do not use the dry runs to work on this scenario. Just play it out and note down changes that are needed or which are requested. Work on these changes later on, but be sure during the dry runs that if changes are to occur, everyone from evaluation side up to technical side is okay with these changes and knows what it means for them. So what you should do is to make these scenario episodes and injects perfectly fit your trial. Also, be critical. When a scenario element brings nothing to assessing the solutions, why do you want to play it out? All these scenario injects also need to be integrated with the data collection plan. Knowing that good and useful injects contribute to assessing the solutions, which data do you want to collect when these injects are played out? In short, the dry runs are there to review every element of your trial design and to list and plan the tasks yet to do. So why actually to conduct 2 dry runs? Can't they be merged? Because their objectives differ in the core, they should never be merged. Dry Run 1 is a technical readiness check and a full run-through of the scenario. Thereafter, you can still make adjustments. After all necessary adjustments, Dry Run 2 serves as a final confirmation of readiness. Dry Run 2 is like an actual trial. It's a full dress rehearsal, just like in a theatre play, just before its opening night. And after a successful Dry Run 2, you shouldn't do any adjustments anymore. Only a tiny amount of purely practical adjustments are allowed. If by then you still need important adjustments, you either have to remove them from your trial setup, or you cannot say Dry Run 2 was a success. Especially in a small trial, both dry runs can be run in the same week though, just not simultaneously. So why do 2 dry runs and not more? We recommend to do as many as you need. We suggest to consider having at least a 2-step process of trial testing, because that's practical and feasible. Always start with a first rehearsal to check whether at least all technical matters and the scenario are okay, and always end with a full rehearsal executed like a real trial. Note that a dry run could take only 1 or a few hours. It doesn't have to take all week, like when executing a very large trial. Now let's have a closer look at Dry Run 1. The main objective of Dry Run 1 is to test the technical setup, the data collection in relation to the scenario, and how training on the solutions will be done. Such a dry run can take a couple of hours, up to 3 days. The technical coordinator is in the lead of this event, at least for testing the technical setup. All other coordinators as well as the solution providers should attend. Other crisis management practitioners can attend as well to do a realism and feasibility check on your trial design. The input in this dry run is the TIMS output and the integration done since, and of course a detailed scenario to run through. The output of Dry Run 1 should be a tested concept of data collection, a conceptual evaluation plan, and to-do list with all tasks to finish to achieve full trial readiness. For this, you of course use technical test. Also, role play, for instance, in the form of a paper-based walkthrough of your scenario, can be very useful. Tools that are recommended to use are the solutions, the testbed technical infrastructure, the observer support tool, and the trial action plan. During your Dry Run 1, you should be able to check off the following aspects. Think about whether all systems are up and running and that every kind of data collection was tested. Is the scenario and its injects okay for the objectives you want to achieve? Are the solutions working well, and do their providers know what still needs to be finalized? Does everyone involved know their role, and do you have sufficient persons to execute your trial? Also, now that you have a good idea on which data is needed to execute your trial and which data is collected, check whether it is legally and ethically okay to use and collect this data. How to finalize your trial setup and which adjustments to do between Dry Run 1 and Dry Run 2. This is the time to rework things that can be fixed easily or absolutely must be fixed. It is important to assess the feasibility of those fixes, meaning their importance, especially in the scope of your trial objectives, and the time it would take to do these fixes. Feasibility and necessity are key words here. Note and be open about the fact that if Dry Run 1 was not a success, or if you feel it is improbable to achieve trial readiness in time, consider to postpone or cancel the trial. Else, you risk doing a lot of work for an event that will never provide the results you are after. And then you have everything set, or at least you think you have everything fixed. Dry Run 2 is to be executed like a real trial. And because the aim of a trial is to collect data, the main objective of Dry Run 2 is to check whether indeed all data you need can be collected like you have designed. It is also your final test whether adjustments listed at the end of Dry Run 1 have been implemented in a proper way. Dry Run 2 also takes about the same time as running a real trial, so around 1 up to 5 days. Like in a real trial, the trial owner is in the lead, and all other coordinators and attendees of a trial should participate as well. Else, it wouldn't be like a real trial. As already stated multiple times, Dry Run 2 is your final confirmation of readiness. Know that this event can also be considered as an excellent training for all your trial staff. You can review the safety and all other organizational aspects of your trial, and you can practice in directing and conducting the trial. This means the real trial will actually be the second time the staff executes the trial script, and you probably will do it better that second time. It is recommended that in Dry Run 2, all roles like coordinators, role players, practitioners, observers, and other support staff are played by at least one professional or someone who has enough expertise to play a certain role. So who to invite as participants, meaning the people using the solutions? Because Dry Run 2 is alike a real trial, you can invite to Dry Run 2 the same participants as in the real trial. Just like all staff members will be the same as Dry Run 2 and the real trial. However, this way, these participants already get to know the full scenario you will present them. And the second time, so during the real trial, they already know which crisis to manage. On the other hand, in this way, they also already know what is expected of them. And they have already practiced with how to use these new and innovative solutions. In this way, they most probably can better compare these solutions with the current baseline process. You can also use stand-in participants, thereby minimizing the learning effect on the real trial participants. And maybe you can even invite during Dry Run 2 less stand-ins, making the whole event more time efficient. However, is Dry Run 2 in that case still a full dress rehearsal? You do risk that during the real trial, people with other sets of experiences and other mindsets will participate. Also, this means these real participants will have far less experience with using the solutions, compared to using the legacy systems in the baseline. You see, both options have their pros and cons. Either one of them can be a good choice, depending on your trial setup and the type of solutions you are assessing. Remember that a trial is not an exercise, so you're not judging the participants how well they are managing the crisis, but you ask them to support and judge how well the solutions can help to bridge a gap. Next to that, in our experience, you can decrease the learning effect by including some small changes in the scenario between Dry Run 2 and the real trial. But of course, these changes need to be dry-runned as well. The most important role of Dry Run 2 is a complete scenario run-through, without any omissions or shortcuts. Also be aware that after Dry Run 2, only minor adjustments can be made. If there are too many major shortcomings after Dry Run 2, the real trial should be postponed to enable additional adjustments, or parts of the trial should be skipped. If you do decide to implement a change, communicate it well, as nobody is expecting any changes at this stage. Okay, your Dry Run 2 is a success. There are a few very simple tasks left that need to be done. They are as follows. Confirm the dissemination and communication activities. After all, you want other people to know about your trial, and most importantly, which results flow later from the evaluation phase. Fix and print the lists of attendees, and finish any still open organizational aspects. Prepare all materials needed for trial execution. Send and print the registration and consent forms, the scenario materials, questionnaires, and so on. Even when you want to use electronic alternatives, be sure to have a trusty printer ready and set as a backup. And be sure to reserve sufficient time to brief all persons involved. Everyone must know what is expected of their role. Let's do a quick recap of the step that is called Dry Run 2. The input in this rehearsal is the final trial script and the observer sheets, so the data collection plan worked out to a very operational level. The output of Dry Run 2 is a fully tested and approved script. All observations and data collection techniques are tested, and the technical setup is tested and approved for a second time. Your main method in Dry Run 2 is role-played, because you are pretending to do a real trial, and your tools are exactly the same as those you used during your real trial. When you have finished a successful Dry Run 2, you have a final data collection plan and evaluation plan, a final trial script containing the scenario and its injects and all other agenda items, a double check on the solutions, their technical integration, and of the entire technical infrastructure. Solution providers are entirely up to speed with the trial and approve this setup. A confirmed list of attendees, including external stakeholders. and a full overview of all the dissemination and communication activities done and yet to be executed. Again, make sure all considerations and forms regarding ethical or legal issues are in place. Incompatibilities in these areas can cause a lot of trouble later on when you want to use the collected data for evaluation.